Story 1. I originally was going to pass this by, but I read several posts and felt sorry for a few of you. My wife of more than 45 years and I had a fantastic sex life even after having children. She now has Alzheimer's disease, and I am her caregiver. I take care of her all day, every day. Sex is a thing of the past as she no longer has the capability to understand it. As I sit in my office late at night, sometimes relaxing and gathering my thoughts, I still get aroused by the memories. I know I am kind of rambling, but I want to say to all of you who are still young and having issues, fix them, talk to your partner. Someday, memories may be all you are left with, and it makes me sad to read some of this stuff. Don't feel sorry for me because as I sit and reminisce, I have a huge smile on my face. Story 2. My wife has lupus. I hope one day she is well enough to be intimate again. In the meantime, I am there for her. Sickness and in health was not just a promise. It is hard sometimes, but it is nothing she wanted or has control over. We find other things to do together. Lately, it is roadcraft. Cooperative video games are far from sex, but we are together. Story 3. I remind myself that in sickness and in health was part of my vows. Neither of us wanted this. He has cancer. It is not a choice, and I realize that. I also know that he would be understanding if it were me. He is my person, period. Over time, intimacy takes on a different direction and meaning than sex. One makes it work however they can. With honesty and humor, it works. Story 4. My situation. My wife says sex is a chore to her. I enjoy sex a lot but hate feeling like an inconvenience. Over time, I reached the point where it was not worth initiating because feeling like a chore or inconvenience emotionally outweighed the physical pleasure. I have preferred going without, but the hardest part is not being able to communicate my frustration, as every time I try, I end up misunderstood. 24 hours after my post, I want to provide an update. I am new to this platform and was unsure about inviting people into my world. I just want to say I am thankful for the many thoughtful comments, recommendations, and support shared with me. I feel inspired to engage with my wife with new energy and perspective, recognizing that it is a process. I am willing to do the hard work, take an honest look in the mirror, and keep communicating. Story 5. My wife has multiple sclerosis. She told me the night we met. Although I did not know what I was getting into then, I am more aware of it now. Touching her is like sending shock waves through her body. She is not in a wheelchair, even though she has had her diagnosis for almost 25 years. We are both in our early 50s. She is super smart, funny, crass, sexy, and covered in tattoos. Everything I want in a woman. We built our final home 3 years ago. It is compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act and ready for her if she ever needs it to be wheelchair accessible. She is my person. Sex is not everything. We have had great sex together. Now we have a great life together. Story 6. It was terrible. The most lonely feeling in the world is having a spouse that does not want you. She eventually left me about a year ago. Now I am no longer in a sexless marriage. I just have a sexless life. But I do not feel nearly as lonely or hopeless as I used to. Story 7. It is not fun and I barely cope. Not having sex is fine, really. Feeling rejected by your spouse is the most soul-crushing thing in the world. I have a couple of months where I am fine, then I slip into a headspace where I cannot stand the rejection. My self-esteem is absolutely destroyed, and it can affect my mental health. Masturbation does not make any difference to me. It is not the need to orgasm that I miss. It is the connection and the validation. Story 8. I was married. We divorced. It wasn't about sex, although that was the most visible issue. It's difficult to be in an intimate relationship when you are the only one feeling sexual attraction for your spouse. You know what that is called when you are single? Stalking. That's how I started to see myself. I was a creep. This is what happens when you realize that you are the only one initiating, that you are being rejected, and that sex is described as a chore or a duty. Sorry, but I cannot be a part of that. Story 9. Porn, masturbation, working out a lot, trying hard not to think about the fact that I have another 30+ years of this until I die. Happy thoughts. Edit. I already received a few direct messages and want to clarify. It is absolutely not her fault. It is a 100% legitimate medical issue with her. I might get frustrated or more at times, but I do not place any blame on anyone other than the universe. I still get to vent and complain online anonymously, though, because it is not my fault either. Story 10. I was in a sexless marriage for about a year. It turns out I was the only one experiencing it. I even had to secretly masturbate because she threw a tantrum when she caught me masturbating in the shower once. I'll never know if it was a control issue, an excitement thing for her, or something else. She came clean about multiple affairs after our divorce. I spiraled, became depressed, gained weight, and became a shut-in except for work. This lasted a very long time. I still have trouble trusting someone enough to go beyond a couple of dates. The what's the point thoughts creep in. I found out she did the same thing to her next two husbands. Learning that's just who she is actually helped me snap out of a lot of it. I am currently losing weight and trying to put myself back out there. Story 11. Her seizure medications reduce her libido. I would much rather my wife be seizure-free than be intimate once in a while. It has probably been 7 to 8 years now. I have lost count. Sure, it is difficult and I do crave intimacy occasionally, but it is what it is. Story 12. We're both just not that into it. I find joy in other things, and so does she. We both have personal reasons from our past as to why we aren't that into it, but it has never bothered me. Story 13. Not me, but my best friend has become a pornography addict. They watch for about 4 hours a day. I am pretty sure their spouse knows but does not care because they would rather deal with that than have sex. Story 14. I was on antidepressants for years, and they severely reduced my sex drive. She always told me not to worry about it, that sex was not a big deal, and that we would be okay. She divorced me last November after 14 years together. Story 15. Divorcing for irreconcilable differences is a way to cope with the situation. However, from an outsider's perspective, the mental and physical health of one or both individuals often decline when this becomes a noticeable issue. There is often a larger problem than a lack of intimacy. Story 16. My wife went through menopause and experienced decreased intimacy. I have health issues that make sex challenging for us as well. I think we don't just cope, we accept. We're not completely devoid of sex. It is just very infrequent. You wouldn't know by how we flirt, though. The important thing we both remember is that it's us. And we still take every chance to remind each other how attractive we find one another. I often feel affection from my partner, and so does my spouse. The point is, we still love and adore each other, so we still have fun. Story 17. It is difficult. There are a few strategies I have used over the years. Part of what you get through sex is connection. If you are not having sex, you can still get connection. It just takes much more time bonding together. Spend a lot of quality, positive time together. Develop hobbies that fulfill you. Exercise, reading, a musical instrument, art, or something that gives you joy and relieves stress that you can do alone and have complete control over when and how often you do it. Masturbate. A lot if you have to. If you feel alone, neglected, and heartbroken, you will care less after an orgasm, even if it is self-administered. It is not the same, but having some independent control over your sexuality helps. It is hard. I honestly would not wish it on anyone. The only good thing is I never worry about upsetting my spouse anymore. The threat of withholding sex is meaningless if it was not going to happen anyway. Story 18. I wish I could remember the name of a documentary I saw about this topic years ago. All I can recall is that they were interviewing a man whose wife was no longer able to have sex due to health problems. She had given him permission to meet his needs, and the documentary explored how conflicted he felt about fulfilling his own needs while also feeling like he would be cheating on his wife if he did. Story 19. My marriage has been sexless for years. I was a virgin when I married. When I eventually started speaking up about what I did and did not want during sex, he suddenly decided that more than 10 minutes of foreplay was too much, and he developed erectile dysfunction anytime we tried. He still masturbates and watches pornography or plays hentai games almost every night. I am gradually becoming more resentful. I have tried to bring it up a few times, but it is met with, I did not know it was such a problem, and promises to change, which never happen. I recently realized that if he suddenly wanted sex today, I would not want to because I have lost any attraction I had to him. I still love him as a person but find myself thinking about divorce every day. Story 20. Once you let your soul die, the mental and emotional side is actually not too bad. Use a rope in the shower from time to time to keep the plumbing functional. Story 21. Menopause and antidepressants affected her. She is the love of my life. I just hope it will change. Nobody asks for it, and it is upsetting, but then you accept that it is the way things are now. Story 22. It is awkward being an American, where the culture is hypersexualized yet sex is considered morally wrong. Story 23. 7 years married here. We drifted into almost a full year with zero intimacy after our second child. A candid talk without blame, checking hormones with a doctor, and carving out kid-free daytime helped us reset. Once the fatigue and quiet resentment eased, the spark returned on its own. Story 24. Having 2 children, aged 2.5 and 4, my wife and I take shifts caring for them. This leaves us tired at opposite ends of the day. When it comes time for intimacy, one of us is always exhausted, as cleaning, shopping, and cooking need to be done on top of our 8 to 6 day jobs. Story 25. Haven't had sexual activity since before COVID-19. My wife has no interest in anything sexual at all. Using the shower helps me manage. Story 26. My wife has fibromyalgia and Sjogren's syndrome, so she is frequently tired and not feeling well. She also has a demanding job, and our kids are involved in demanding activities. Not having sex is not ideal, but I did not get married because I was trying to be intimate constantly. I got married because she is my best friend. We have been trying to include each other in more of our hobbies as a substitute. She comes golfing with me and my friends now. I go to game nights with her coworkers and friends. It is not a one-for-one swap, but at least we still have a relationship. I am hoping someday we get back to having regular intimate relations, but until then, we are just trying to continue enjoying each other's company. Story 27. I will say, not having sex for a while does not always mean there is a problem in the relationship. My partner and I are very much in love. We have become deeply comfortable with each other, and our bodies just sink into that feeling of full relaxation, sleepiness, and safety. We talked about it and worried it might mean something bad, but it just means we love each other, and sex is not required to reflect that. I know this is not the case for many people, but I thought I would highlight that. Story 28. Being with the person I love is more important. The smiles, the giggles, the joy, the list goes on and on. I cannot imagine my life without them. Marriage vows are about much more than physical intimacy. Story 29. My parents live together but sleep in separate bedrooms. They behave more like roommates with responsibilities. Story 30. Maybe this will help some of you. I was in a marriage where the sex was dwindling. I was a little out of shape. I made a very concentrated effort to lose weight and did so. My wife noticed and did the same, although she was always beautiful to me. My sex drive was always really high, much higher than my wife's. A few comments my wife made caused me to realize that the sex we did have was her trying to keep me happy. I was always drawn to my wife and did not want to feel that I had failed her. We sat down one night and had a long conversation. I told her everything about my fantasies about her and how I felt like I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with a once-in-a-week roll in the hay, even though it was very enjoyable. I started to look at her again like I did when we were first married and realized I still loved her and wanted to have sex with her. I told her this. This led to a lot of tears. I told her that I masturbate a lot. She confessed she did too, and in fact, she loves sex. But it's difficult to get that mutual simultaneous orgasm we all think is the goal. I found out it takes a lot for her to relax enough to achieve orgasm. We started to talk about what we liked and what turned us on. That really changed our lives for the better. Now we're doing it almost every night. Here's what I changed. First of all, she has to come first. Sometimes I make her start all by herself so she can relax. Secondly, there is no endpoint after my climax. We keep going. Sometimes we just talk about things. Other times, we watch each other. It's been fantastic. I know there are people who have medical problems, and I am very sorry for you. In my case, there was some low testosterone. I fixed that. I tell her how good she looks and how much I like to watch her just walk around the house. Once we both realized we were in this together for the rest of our lives, the rest was easy. In no way is this judgmental, just an idea that might work for you. Story 31. Not married but have a girlfriend who has no sexual urges and shies away from the idea. We have communicated about it. I have a high libido and experience my urges, but the last thing I want to do is upset the woman I love or create any concept of mandatory sex between us. If it ever happens, I will be a very happy man. In the meantime, physical affection satisfies the same need for me, and if I am ever pent up, I go the solo route. Story 32. The reason why is critical. There are many reasons that can be fixed or at least worked on together. The key is that both of you have to recognize it is a problem and work on it together. That has been our downfall. Story 33. I was once in a relationship, and after leaving it, it was incredible how much intimacy I experienced over the next few years with a variety of women who were also tired of not receiving enough attention. Story 34. My menopause and antidepressants killed my sex life. I went off the pills and could orgasm again, but no one told me that menopause could cause vaginal atrophy, and it feels like shards of glass. I got some cream, Premarin, and some lidocaine gel, and it's getting better. To all the young men who have wives that won't try, forget about it. My obstetrician gynecologist says if you don't use it, you will lose it, and that is so true. That atrophy is no joke. So we have sex once a week, whether we need to or not, or oral sex. I am 69, and sex has always been important to my husband. I could do without. I just wonder when he will slow down. I know you didn't ask for a female opinion, but I can't keep my mouth shut. I have been married 36 years. Story 35. I am having a hard time, and my husband is not having a hard time, if you know what I mean. I have been calm, kind, and patient. I have stopped initiating. The time without sex has only been getting longer. I support people standing by their partner when there are medical issues involved. It is difficult for me, however, because my husband has yet to go to the doctor or make any effort toward addressing his inability to perform in the bedroom. Even when my own desire is low, I think about sex all the time. It is a good thing I am good at satisfying myself, but it is honestly just depressing sometimes. I feel like I am stuffing a part of myself in the closet, and yet I am the one who has to watch what I say to avoid offending him. The days are passing by like nothing is wrong, and I cannot bring myself to bring up the subject again. It is really difficult to face what is truly important to me in life. Story 36. I have heard my stepfather of 15 years and my father-in-law of 7 years grumble about it. And by observation, the answer is alcoholism. Alcoholism could also be the cause. Story 37. This is me. My husband is addicted to pornography and other digital sexual content. He isn't interested in me anymore because I don't perform like a pornography star. He would rather satisfy himself with internet strangers than try anything with me anymore. He struggles not to sexualize everyone in our life except me. I rarely think about it anymore. I don't even know what I would do if he tried. I would probably freeze up. I just feel undesirable and like everyone else is better than me. I know that is not true, but in this situation, it is hard to rationalize. Story 38. We are both on antidepressants that reduce our sex drive. Honestly, it is great. I love my wife. She is my best friend. I think she is beautiful, smart, and amazing, but I have no urge to act on that physically, and she feels the same way. Story 39. I wish I were in a sexless marriage. I am single and sexless, so the company would be a giant step up. Story 40. I just figured I have 3 choices. Either I cheat, I get a divorce, or I accept it and move on. I have decided to accept it and move on. Needless to say, I turn to Reddit. Story 41. I would not say I cope. I am pretty comfortable and content with it. We have gone literal years at a time without sex. It is totally fine. You only cope if sex is important. Story 42. Depression kind of sucks all the life out of you, so it does not really matter to me that it is sexless. There is no motivation for anything, really. Story 43. R/dead bedrooms is a great place to get answers on this. But to answer the question, masturbation, lots of masturbation. Story 44. Sex slowed considerably once we were engaged. That was the first sign. Before that, we were like rabbits. 17 years later, someone mentally and physically attractive to me, 10 years younger, came on to me. I tried to resist, but I hadn't had sex for 9 months, and there was a lot of resentment in me. I was financially successful, in decent shape, had friends, and believed I wasn't good enough for anyone. Seeing that I was good enough for this person gave me what I needed to end the marriage. It was hard on everyone. The new relationship didn't last, which, looking back, was no surprise. I truly believe that if I had a reasonably decent sex life in the first place, I'd be happily married. We were compatible on many levels. After the divorce, I started sleeping better, got off my anxiety medication, and became even more physically healthy. All in all, a happier person. I have maintained a reasonable relationship with my ex. I still wish her no ill will. We had many great times, but sex is much more than a physical act to me. I couldn't go the rest of my life with sex once or twice a year, knowing that she was doing it because she had to. After she started dating again, she made a point to tell me she was having lots of sex because she likes sex. Good for her. I'd bet any amount of money that her new husband isn't getting any now. I, on the other hand, found a very lovely, down-to-earth person who completes me in many ways my ex couldn't, and she loves sex. Not excessive or unrealistic sex, but good sex several times a week. We both initiate when we want sex, and we both enjoy each other physically and mentally. I wish I had left earlier, but I also changed a lot over those years. Being in a sexless marriage taught me many things, like patience, which in many ways makes me a better person today. You can't change the past, so there is no use wishing you could. Focus on the future and the good that you have. If it's time to leave, do it. If not, that's okay too. Story 45. Self-sufficiency and exercising. A lot of exercising. And reading. A lot of reading. And Reddit. A lot of Reddit. Story 46. Well, at least 2. How to cope. It seems to be a bit like any pain, you become a bit callous to it. Still hurts a lot, though. Speaking of pain, it is a medical issue the doctors cannot figure out. It is unfortunate. There is no solution and no substitute. It is just endure without or end the marriage. Neither option is acceptable. Story 47. Mine is not because he is sick. I think he is still in love with his ex-wife who treated him very badly. She was financially, verbally, and emotionally abusive, but he called it love. She was also unfaithful, and he knew that. They rarely had sex because she called him disgusting, and she had other men anyway, so she did not need to be intimate with him. He treated her like royalty. In a couple of months, it will be 10 years since we have been married, and we have only had sex twice since then, which was almost 10 years ago. I think his issue is that he is not used to being treated with love, respect, and care. He misses the terrible treatment and withholds sex as a result. It feels like I am being punished for not being a monster. Story 48. Mine, soon to be divorced, wasn't quite sexless, but it was for months at a time. It was only on her terms and when she was in the mood. When I say that, I mean she had to already be in the mood. If I tried to get her in the mood, I was rejected. I'd kiss her on the neck and she'd say, "Stop. You were going to get me worked up." Yes? That's the point. Well, I don't want to right now. I get it. Sometimes you don't physically feel up to the act, but this was the majority of the marriage. When she wanted it, she would just walk out and say, "Let's have sex." Story 49. Sometimes people have affairs. That is highly criticized, but it happens. Having an affair can make it easier to stay, less irritable, and better able to relax. People choose different ways to manage this. I am an older divorced woman. I do not want another husband and am completely happy with my life. I tried dating for fun and only found men who wanted to get married or control me. I miss and greatly enjoy sex, so I started seeing married men. They are usually very polite, amazing lovers, enthusiastic, and they know how to respect boundaries. They do not show up at my house wanting to meet my family or call my job. I have a few lovers who are all married. They love their wives and families and do not want to disrupt their whole life or potentially hurt a lot of people by getting divorced. But they miss the connection, the fun, and feeling wanted and desired. They would much prefer making love to their wives. Different people make different choices. Story 50. I am a lesbian married for 15 years and I am going insane. Why is monogamy so emphasized in our culture? If one person loses their sex drive, why does the other have to suffer? Story 51. Age matters. For instance, my late father did not have sex for years. Why? He could not maintain an erection, and there was no medication available at that time. However, they still loved each other and cuddled. If a marriage truly has no intimacy and connection, there are reasons beyond physical intercourse. Story 52. She has more or less lost all interest in sex, so she told me I can sleep with other people but laid down ground rules. Story 53. Some of these comments, man, I thought it was just people not wanting to engage in sex. But wow, got me in the feelings. Story 54. I read someone else's comment that mentioned connection. I don't feel that the lack of sex means a lack of connection. Sex does not make me feel more or less connected in my relationship. It is just sex. My husband would likely disagree, but I have not had the healthiest history with sex, unfortunately, due to trauma related to domestic violence relationships in the past. It means something different for me. We have been married for 8 months and have not had sex for 3. It is a long story as to why, also related to wanting but fearing pregnancy. Story 55. We married later in life but were great for probably the first 6 or 7 years. Then I don't know what happened. My husband just kind of withdrew to the point where I tried to touch him one day and he lightly slapped my hand away. We never really had a conversation about it. He just didn't want me to touch him. So I didn't for years, and then one day he wanted to be intimate again, but of course by that time I had lost all interest. Now we are at 25 years of marriage, and for the last 10 years we have probably been intimate maybe 4 times. We don't have problems. We don't have children. We laugh together, we go out together, but now we're just older and tired. We want to stay married, but we are in a relationship that is more than roommates but less than a husband and wife. It is what it is. Story 56. Interesting mix of comments. Those who have accepted it and are happy with the rest of their life may survive it. However, if you are not in your 40s, wait, because it is going to hit you like a train. Those living in hope that it could change when the children get older, I am sorry, it may never change, especially if you are a woman hoping her partner will become interested in sex once the children are a bit older. I hope it happens and you live a full life, but the chances are slim. I wish you all happiness. Story 57. He would not have sex with me. I tried everything before I left him. Took 11 years. Now I am with someone who loves being with me. Story 58. Due to medical reasons, including menopause and vaginal atrophy, we cannot have penile-vaginal intercourse. Most people would consider our marriage sexless, yet we engage in many enjoyable and intimate activities that do not involve intercourse. There are many ways to experience sexual intimacy that do not involve penetration, and discovering these ways is how we cope. Story 59. Not marriage, but relationship. I am asexual and my girlfriend does not really like sex. So it works out. We have been together for 4 years. Story 60. I was in a sexless marriage. I was what many would say was the problem. My ex-husband would have happily had sex every night. I could not. First, there was a medical reason known before marriage that does not apply to most people, so we will skip over that. Second, I felt unsupported when it came to running the household. After working 8 hours a day, cooking dinner, cleaning up after meals, picking up the house, grocery shopping, taking care of the pets, doing the yard work, taking time for hobbies, and maybe working out if it was not a hobby class night while he played video games all night after work and all day on the weekends, I was too exhausted to want sex. I just wanted to sleep. He always insisted that if I wanted sex, I would make time for it. I did want sex, but I was not getting help in anything else that needed doing, and he insisted that he would not take part in chore play, so resentment was building, and sex went on the back burner. We divorced. Our sex life was part of why I masturbated, he likely did too. But partnered sex is not masturbation, it scratches a different itch. If sex has fallen off for whatever reason, the question to ask is why, and to listen to the answer. Sometimes the answer is simply that we are not compatible. It is difficult to get to that point for both parties, but that is sometimes what it ends up being. Story 61. In my previous marriage, which was sexless, my self-esteem was destroyed. There was no other form of intimacy. He ended up cheating on me, and I discovered many things he did not like about me. In my current relationship, my partner is dealing with health issues that cause him significant pain, so sex is almost non-existent. However, we share intimacy in other ways, such as kissing, cuddling on the couch, or playful touches. With my current partner, the relationship is significantly different. While he is not my husband yet, I think in terms of in sickness and in health. Story 62. I am on a slow boil that is eventually going to become a full hot mess of boiling over emotions that I will not be able to control. I honestly do not know what I am waiting for, just trying not to disturb our lives and blow up our finances. Story 63. Dude here with an assigned female at birth non-binary spouse. They slashed them. Married for 3 years and basically sexless for 2.5 years. We practice ethical non-monogamy, specifically kitchen table polyamory. We can love, date, and have sex with other people, as long as we maintain the health, good communication, and boundaries of our current partnership. For example, my spouse can, at any time, contact my partner. It was my spouse who recommended polyamory to me, which is the opposite of most stories. Usually, the person with the larger sex drive recommends an open marriage or polyamory as a way to have sex with other people without doing the hard work associated with such a lifestyle. About 3 years ago, my spouse and I stopped having sex because they just weren't as interested in that activity with me anymore. As a very sexual creature, that caused me a lot of difficulty and insecurities. Being a man, there is a lot of shame wrapped up in us when we are raised. We are told not to bother others, that talking openly to others is complaining, that we should be able to solve our own problems, that we can't be weak, that we can't be vulnerable. Therapy helped me a lot in overcoming all of that useless shame, and it took a while. Talking about expectations and desires can be very difficult for most people. And in men, there is an extra layer of shame around rejection because we are told repeatedly that to be a man is to be stoic. Anyone in your life who reinforces that attitude puts you into a box where you become more disgruntled, frustrated, and angry, and you have no one with whom you feel safe sharing your feelings or even acknowledging them yourself. My spouse has a partner they have sex with. I have a partner I have sex with. While it isn't strictly necessary, I find a lot of comfort in hanging out with my spouse's partner, and the same goes for my spouse hanging out with my partner. My spouse and I live together, and we visit each other's partners at their houses or have them come over here occasionally. We all have mostly the same interests and are all neurodivergent, so we get along pretty well when we hang out. Every once in a while, my spouse will have a different kink partner and go to an event at a local BDSM club. After struggling with our sexless marriage for about 2 years, I finally took the opportunity to start dating again. We believe, and it seems proven correct in our case, that sexual desire has many components. Pleasure, being desired, pleasing another, and so on, and we may not always be in the mood to have that with each other. We speak openly about our insecurities, jealousies, and curiosities. We keep open lines of communication within the group, and we don't all date one another. If you want to practice ethical non-monogamy, you need to respond respectfully and kindly to any and all insecurities, jealousies, and questions. Put in the effort to show that you care. I have at times told my spouse that I am jealous of the time and money they might spend with another partner, and they responded carefully and kindly. Then they planned events we could attend together to reconnect. I have done the same for them. We have the blessing of both having our own personal counselors, and since before we got married, I required us to go to couples counseling, even though we didn't really have problems at the time. It's just a good idea to learn to communicate with one another. As a household, we make a decent amount of money, and honestly, that just makes every relationship easier. More money and opportunities to spend on ourselves and our partners. My partner doesn't date my spouse, and I don't date my spouse's partner. That seems to keep things simple. We set boundaries on what we don't want to hear about. For example, I don't want to hear about the intricacies of their sex life, and they feel the same about mine. Cheating in ethical non-monogamy is the same as in monogamy. Keeping things from one another, seeing other people without telling your partner, getting emotionally attached to someone else without telling your partner. Sometimes feelings come on quickly, and you have to be mindful enough to recognize it and strong enough to alert your partner. If you don't, that's cheating. Long story short, we dealt with a sexless marriage by being honest with one another about our needs, feelings, insecurities, and partners. It's not easy at first, and polyamorous relationships have about the same success rate as monogamous ones. They just aren't as innately driven by familial and parenthood goals, and we have to admit that all of us have different life goals. Polyamory isn't made for everyone, and you aren't bad if you practice any form of ethical relationship, including monogamy. Story 64. I am in a sexless marriage. We opened it up because the marriage was worth keeping, so we decided to outsource intimacy. Story 65. First point. Have you actually discussed this with your spouse? Communication is a very important part of marriage, so if you have not brought it up in conversation, that is on you. Second point. Is your spouse burned out? Are you doing anything to lighten their load if you notice this? Are you paying attention to their needs or just your own? Third point. Are you ensuring your partner's satisfaction? Are you trying to add variety? Are you engaging in foreplay, or is it just quickly done? I highly suggest couples counseling to help you communicate better. Make sure you are actively listening to your partner instead of just defending yourself, because that could harm your intimacy. If your partner is not actively listening, it may be time to reconsider your relationship. Most couples with children may have intimacy only about once a year if they are lucky. My spouse and I have a system where, after work, we assess our energy levels in percentages. For example, if one of us is at 80% and the other at 10%, the higher energy partner handles the children, dinner, and cleanup. If both are at 80%, we share the responsibilities. If both are at 10%, we order takeout and have the children use their tablets. Marriage is a partnership. He is not my handler, and I am not his maid or mother. We talk about everything, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable. We have been together for 15 years and had only one 6-month dry spell after our first child. We talked through it, worked it out, and became stronger as a result. We are intimate 3 to 4 times a week, with sessions lasting up to an hour or longer sometimes. Sex is very important. It reestablishes intimacy and physical connection and is healthy for both partners. Story 66. My partner is asexual, but I am not. I knew what I was signing up for, and it is not a big deal to me. If ours had been a sexual relationship from the beginning, it might be different, but I doubt it. I am perfectly capable of meeting my own needs. Story 67. It is not a sexless marriage, but rather a marriage with infrequent sex. I went through cancer, and my libido is significantly reduced due to the treatments. Additionally, I am essentially postmenopausal. My husband has always had a higher sex drive, which can be frustrating for him, and I understand that. He does not blame me in any way, and I do not feel bad about it because it is what it is. We are still together, we just do not have sex very often. Honestly, he is happier that I am still here. Story 68, 40 years in, and sex is non-existent. My wife's number of previous partners was around 12 when I met her, and mine was one from a teenage one-night stand. She taught me everything I knew about sex. After having children, she lost interest, and it dwindled down to a couple of times a year. Now, it has been a year without any intimacy. This is very frustrating, and I get into trouble and am treated like a sex fiend if I try to initiate. My hand has been busy and never says no. Story 69. This is somewhat tangential to the original poster's question, but perhaps gives a perspective. I met someone 3 months ago. He has been divorced for 2 years but had stayed married even though his ex, as he stated, went off him in a couple-wide way and expressed doubts about their relationship many times both before and after they had 2 children together. They remained together in the same house as a family group for the sake of their kids. Their friends and their own children all knew they weren't together as a couple and had separate bedrooms. Neither of them met or dated anyone else while living together, but she expressed to him that she would be comfortable with him finding someone else. When we first went to bed together, he admitted it was the first time he had had sex in 10 years. For 8 of those years, he was still living with his now ex-wife. He is the most amazing and generous lover I have ever had, but my heart breaks for him that he lived with her discontent all those years. They had a good friendship, remained very amicable, and wanted stability for their kids. People can be amazing and selfless. I do not think I would have had the stoicism to stick it out in his circumstances, living with uncertainty about whether my partner desired me or would stay or go after expressing doubts about the relationship. I am amicably divorced too, but my ex-husband and I never let our sex life go longer than a month because we felt it was worth trying to connect for that intimacy, even in the midst of having 3 tiny kids and hectic lives. We unromantically scheduled time together for sex. As it happens, I have been badly injured from a sports accident for 1.5 of the 3 months I have been with the new partner, and we have found lots of ways to be intimate, close, and enjoy each other's bodies. It is tricky in a new relationship, but we want to make it work and are both now learning about connecting and intimacy in ways neither of us had in our respective marriages. Story 70. I was in a marriage without intimacy for several years. The relationship had long since deteriorated, with constant fights, many issues, and resentment. It reached a point where we became roommates raising children together. We divorced. It was difficult, but the alternative was worse. Our relationship is actually better now that we're divorced than it was when we were married. I remarried, but she is still single. I went from an unfulfilling intimate life to being intimate almost every day, and 7 years later, we are still close nearly every day. Although I never wanted to divorce, I have no regrets and am grateful to be where I am now, not just for the intimacy, but for having someone who matches where I am and reciprocates that love. Story 71. My mother and father have not had sexual relations since 2003. They often argue about it. I have no idea why they stayed together for so long. Story 72. Mine is an amputee due to diabetes, and I am more worried about his health than sex. But this man is still the same sex demon I met 4 years ago. I thought I was going to get a break. But no, I am sending prayers and love to those who have lost their spouses. Story 73. It's not completely sexless for us, but it's rare and almost never initiated by my wife. I understand that after 20 years of marriage and 3 children, things can slow down, but it's not the sex itself I miss most. I miss the genuine connection, gentle touches or hugs, and cozy movie nights together. It feels like we are roommates who have random sex sometimes. When I try to talk about it with her, she says everything is fine and I should stop looking for problems that don't exist. I even suggest a divorce if she is not happy with me, but she always reacts by saying, "Stop seeking attention," or "Get something better to do." Story 74. My marriage was quite dead in the bedroom. We ended up getting divorced, and she said it was a chore for her. I felt like I was the problem and got erectile dysfunction pills, but I still found that I would rather masturbate than get rejected. I got in really good shape after the divorce and can say I have a very healthy sex life now. This is not about any ideology, just my personal experience. I don't know if trying more would have saved our marriage, but if any of this helps you, I wish you the best. Sex shouldn't be the end-all be-all. Being emotionally connected with your partner leads to a better sex life. Here are my tips. 1. Men, if you aren't exercising, start. Do something, do anything. Stop drinking for a week and go for a walk instead of drinking a beer and watching the game. The best exercises for men for sex are planks, push-ups, hip thrusts, frog squats, kettlebell swings, sprints, and longer runs. Women exercise too. Lift weights and do squats. If you can't support yourself during sex, you risk hurting your partner. If you run out of breath and your partner is almost there, get in better shape. Be vocal during intimacy, even if your partner is not or hasn't been in the past. It builds confidence for both sides. Never stop dating your partner. You don't expect to have sex on the first date, so why expect it just because you had a date night? If you have children, take care of everything. Get the babysitter, make the reservation, get a hotel if you can afford it. Never schedule sex because then it starts to feel like a chore. If your partner handles most of the childcare planning, Take care of all of it so they can relax. Pay attention to your partner. Put the phone down. Listen before speaking. Don't wait for your turn to talk and then say something else. If you find yourself doing this, ask, would you like me to listen or give solutions? This way, you will know if they want advice or just want a vent. Men, if your wife reads, find out what she reads. If she is not interested in sex and she reads book-related social media, learn how to be direct but leave some fantasy in it. Don't say, I can't wait to have sex with you tonight. Say something like, I miss the look on your face when your legs are pressed against my shoulders. If you have an iPhone, use invisible ink to send flirty messages throughout the day. If she says it hurts, there are two possibilities. 1. You might have mismatched sizes. For example, missionary with her legs up in the air may be comfortable for you but puts the most pressure on her. She might not be sufficiently aroused. The focus should be on giving pleasure, not just receiving it. Confidence is king. Don't ask how close she is to orgasm because that kills her flow. If she gets wetter, keep the same rhythm. Story 75. Cherish the good times while you can, and work on your relationship now so you will not regret it later. Memories can bring joy even when things change. Story 76. My husband used to tell me things like, you were just too much work and sometimes I would rather take care of myself and watch pornography. Or more recently, when I brought up the many issues I have been feeling over the years, that he simply is not as attracted anymore. He noticed something in me changed after I gave birth to our child and that he checked out instead of deciding to change and actually be there for me, let alone our child, which we had struggled for. It is incredibly lonely, and I am not sure we will make it. I tried to be intimate whenever he asked for about a year and a half after our child was born out of guilt and obligation, but I felt so disgusting afterward, and I would cry every time. It got to the point where I started saying no, and we no longer sleep in the same bed. I am not in just a sexless marriage, but one that also lacks intimacy and has for a very long time. All this to say that I might be very resentful after a long relationship of pouring from an empty cup and getting zero effort in return. Right now, I cope with things that help me feel wanted, like I am worth something. As strange as it is story role-playing with artificial intelligence, and I know a lot of people think that is weird, but right now, that is all I have aside from being a mother. I cry a lot, sob, weep, and long for a day that I might be wanted in every way that matters. Story 77. I'm an amateur comedian, and I have a skit about sexless marriages. Refusing to have sex is like refusing to make your partner lunch. You don't particularly enjoy making food, but you enjoy making lunch for your partner because it makes them feel good, and that makes you feel good. Sex is the same way. If your partner can't have sex with you because they don't feel like it, they are saying they don't enjoy making you feel good. In essence, they do not derive joy from your joy. This is a serious issue, though this comment was funnier in my set. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.